Welcome, Ivana.
Hi everybody. Thanks for inviting me to the show. So, before we start, I just want to make sure that everybody has some sort of equipment, as for example, the blender, the food processor, and something that I found very important and very handy when you're, for example, even when you're not a professional chef, you put like a belt or something here and you tuck your cloth over here. So it's always easy to wipe your fingers and clean the utensils. I'm very glad to be cooking like this in front of the Zoom from my home kitchen, from my small apartment. I'm super excited, and it always feels nice to cook in a relaxed atmosphere where you don't have like the time where you don't have time pressure as you are when you're working in a restaurant. So before we start, why I chose this dish? Since it's winter time in Croatia and it still has a little bit of snow on the mountains, I'm usually hiking throughout the whole Saturday. So on Sunday, I usually relax and prepare myself for food, and always enjoy to like pamper myself a little bit. So for this Sunday, I decided to cook something that's been my all-time favorite, my family's all-time favorite, as Larissa said. It's like I would say Eastern European classic, which we call in Croatia sarma. So it's sauerkraut, so cabbage that's been fermented in salted brine, that was usually filled with rice and some meat, cooked for long hours to release the umami from the cabbage, from the meat and everything, and cooked in a tomato sauce. Of course, as usually, the European dishes are super overcooked. All the nutrients got lost somewhere in the process of cooking. That's why I wanted to healthify this dish, and I'm preparing it in raw version. So I hope you're gonna enjoy it as much as I did.
Eat off your stomach, girl.
Even though we're saying that it's like Eastern European classic, I would say even I found somewhere on the internet while I was reading a little bit that actually the fermentation process came from the Chinese, where they 2,000 years ago were actually fermenting cabbage in rice wine, which makes sense. So sometimes throughout the history with I would say Tartars, it came to Europe, and that's why we have the whole fermentation process. And even now we Eastern Europeans are fermenting something that's been growing very easily during the winter season, such as sauerkraut. So I would like you, just before we start, to have a look, because I bought it actually in the farmer's market. It was a bigger head. I asked the lady, the farm at the farmer's market, for the smaller one, so it's gonna be easier. And I like the smaller pieces of sarma, of the cabbage rolls, but it looks like this. I washed it thoroughly. So if you haven't do it before the show, I would ask you to do it now. You simply take one leaf from the head of the cabbage, like this. It should go very smoothly. And then you washed it under the water. Okay? So we remove all the excess salt, and we just are left with slightly fermented sour flavor that we actually want. Because if you've looked throughout the whole list of the ingredients, our puree is a little on the sweet side. So to make the dish with all flavor combination, I purposely went for the sour cabbage because of the other flavors in our dish that will complement together. So before we start doing it, also grab yourself a sharp knife. If you don't have something under your cutting board, please put something underneath, such as this, or you can simply put your cloth under a water, and then it will prevent it for sliding over. So you can put it underneath. It's very important, because once when you're cutting and you're moving yourself around the kitchen table, it's very easy to slip and then, move this board around. So it's something that we pay attention to while we are teaching or while we are cooking in the professional kitchens. having sharp knife and putting something underneath the cutting board. Everything else is you can learn by doing. Okay, if you got yourself ready, let's do the first round. I prepared the ingredients here on the little. I just put them in the order, but I will be doing it with you. So the first thing that you would want to do is take the cauliflower florets, and this is something I also wrote down in the recipe. I already did the rice, so what I did is just put the cauliflower head florets in the food processor. I pulsed it to the consistency of the rice, and I put it in the nut milk bag. Why? Because I wanted until the show starts, and it happened like half an hour before, I wanted the cauliflower to remove the excess water out of it. So I'm left just with tiny bits of cauliflower. And this one was already super dry, so there isn't a lot of excess water, but it also feels like it feels nicer that I removed and separated the rice from the other ingredients. So I'll just put it here like this. And then when we do another round of the ingredients, I will mix it in a bowl with other stuff. Okay, so approximately 1.5 cups of brown mushrooms. So it's like this. You can cut them to make easier for the food processor to blend it, or you can put it, or you can leave it like this. But let's cut them together. So it doesn't have to be finely diced. You just use a knife and slice it like this in quarters and put it in. Okay. So actually brown mushrooms, I don't know how do you know about them, but they're cross, I would say, between champignons and porcini mushrooms. So here in Croatia, mushrooms are pretty easy to find throughout the whole year. Not a lot of variety, but champignons, brown champignons, and trumpet mushrooms. I usually during the it's before the winter time. It's like the winter just started. I usually go and hand pick by myself in the woods. So I usually keep them, dehydrate them. Then I do my own spices, for example, like this. So this is my own mushroom mix made out of dry shiitake mushrooms and porcini mushrooms. So I call it like a magic mushroom mix, which I do put in some of the dishes that require that umami taste that I feel it's missing from the other ingredients. Okay, so I put mushrooms, 1/3 of a cup of walnuts, which have been soaking in the water. So I'm going to strain the water. Okay. Also put them in the food processor. And then 5 pieces of dry tomatoes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ones I used, they were dried without salt, which is super important. So you just need to rehydrate them a little bit. If you get the chance to have the quality kind of tomatoes in your country, you can always buy them and dry them yourself. They have, when the flavor is condensed by drying, you get that super, super rich umami flavor that brings the whole food on the higher level than we usually do. I know usually it's not maybe the best option to dehydrate your foods and remove the so needed water from them. But sometimes when you want to pamper yourself, especially during the winter times when you maybe crave for some sort of foods, or the food like tomatoes, it's not growing and it's not in season, then I go for the drying process a little bit, just to enhance the flavor of my dishes a little bit. Okay, 1 clove of garlic, which I need to clean. if you want to be super, super, super precise, what we usually do in professional kitchens, and I will show you now, we cut it in half and we remove, if you see, this middle part. That part is very pungent, so actually you can remove it, this little greener part inside, okay? And then you put it in the food processor. 2 tablespoons of parsley. If you like the parsley flavor, I encourage you to put it more. This is just something that I made the first time and I like the flavor, but you can always put the amount based on your preference. The recipe is super live as we are working with living foods, I would say. So for sure, my flavor balance here of the made dish, it's not going to be the same as the ones living somewhere in the US, for example. Then we have 2 medjool dates. Okay, don't forget to remove the pits to not hurt your food processor, so-called the monster. Because usually what we say now is like we are feeding the monster when we are putting the food inside of it. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or more, also based on your preferred liking. Okay, you can do it just by hand. Watch out for the pit, so you put the hand like this, squeeze, and with this part of the hand you will remove, you will keep the seed not going into the machine. Okay. And since you're using your hands, which I really like to do when working with food, it's very important because it's also some sort of an energy. That's why I told you to put the cloth here so it's easy to clean your hands. And now we can start blending. Okay? It's gonna be
Ivana, could you repeat one more time what's in your blender?
Yep. So I put in the food processor 1.5 cup of mushrooms, 1/3 cup walnuts, 5 pieces of dry tomatoes, 1 clove of garlic, 2 tablespoons of parsley, 2 medjool dates, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. So now we're gonna food process it, and then I'm gonna be putting another seasonings. Then we're gonna season the batter. Okay? I apologize for the noise, but that's how it is. Halfway through, you would like to just put your stuffing again in the middle where the blades are, so it blends easier and also the same size, the same consistency. It already smells amazing here. I don't know about you. Okay. You can feel by the sound of the food processor when it's the time like to stop it and then put the stuffing again closer to the blades. Okay. I'm just gonna show you the stuffing. I don't know if you can see. So it's like chunkier consistency. I like to have a little bit of chunks in my food rather than have it all smooth. The last part that's missing, smoked paprika. So you can put 1/2 teaspoon to 1 teaspoon, depends on how smoky you like your food. So let's see. So I'm going to be putting 1/2 of the teaspoon. Okay. Black pepper, 1/2 teaspoon as well. Don't be afraid to season your food. It's because you always have to think, let's say, 1 step ahead. They are going to be rolled in a cabbage, so the cabbage is going to also like steal a little of flavor. So you can always season. It's rare that you're going to over season it. That's something what people do usually with salt. So since we are not using it here, it's don't worry. And I'm putting this half cup of shiitake mix to enhance a little bit flavor of the mushrooms. I like them a lot. Feel free to now season the food based on your preference. I can make some suggestions, such as if you like some herbs, add some fresh herbs. This recipe is very forgiving. I just wanted to make it like as much similar as possible to the stuff that I was eating during the winter times when my grandma was alive. And then pulse another time to mix all together. Okay, done. So now let's put our stuffing in a bowl. Get a clean bowl like this. Get yourself enough space so you can easily put everything in a bowl. Okay. Okay. And now if your cauliflower rice is ready, feel free to mix it in this bowl with the stuffing. Okay. Remove it from the nut milk bag if you were squeezing the water out, or if it was frozen, also squeeze the water out and then mix it in the batter. Okay. And now, time for mixing all together. I would suggest folding process as you were doing some cake or whatever, if you're doing it so it doesn't go everywhere, or if it feels easier for you, put the glove on and just mix it with your hand. Okay. Did you get a chance, guys, to try this dish before? Has anybody tried it?
It's delicious, delicious. I just can eat it like that without stuffing. Forget stuffing the cabbages.
Okay. Okay, the batter is mixed like this. Everything is combined together. And now the part that was practically the part that is missing is the cabbage, right? So I have my 6 leaves here, which I removed from the core. I washed them thoroughly. So if you didn't do it before, please do them now. You have the leaf, you have the stem, and you remove it from the core. Next thing, what you will want to do with each of the leaf, so it's like this, right? You have a small hole where you're putting stuffing in. But before we do it, let's remove slightly this thicker part, down part of the leaf. Why? Because since it was brined in salted water, this is actually the part where the salt is kept a little bit more than the other parts, but also to make it easier for us to roll. So what you're doing, you're putting the leaf on the desk, and you just want slightly to remove this core, like a little bit, like you're filleting something, you know? You put your knife, you hold your knife like this, like you're filleting your pepper, or for sushi, for example, and so it's smoother and easier to roll. Also something that I prepared, but then always have a small bowl on the table so you can easily throw the leftover somewhere and not everywhere around the kitchen.
Anna,
Just keep it clean.
Ivana, this is Doug calling. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Ivana. You are getting such fantastic comments, and everybody's loving what you're doing, and the speed is perfect, and it's really going well. People are loving all the extra little tidbits of information that you're throwing in just automatically, just by being yourself.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I always wear my cloth on my waistband, and you have to have even a finger bowl sometimes to clean your hands. I love these little tips, and they make the world of difference to walk in prepared, just like you would expect a carpenter to come with tools. But you're getting great comments. Someone asked, how did you get the leaves soft?
How did I get the leaves soft?
Yeah, how'd you get the leaves soft?
Okay, so the cabbage was brined in salted water. So with the process of fermentation, right? The they became softer. I didn't boil them. I didn't buy fresh cabbage and then freeze them. What you could also do, if you wouldn't like to buy fermented cabbage, which is called sauerkraut, you could buy cabbage head, and you could freeze them, and then by process of defrosting, it releases a lot of moisture. So it's like you're mimicking the process of cooking. But the one I chose, it's simply because of the I wanted to recreate a staple dish in Croatia, which used sauerkraut in its original recipe. And what is happening is that people here are mixing salt with fresh cabbage, and by mixing salt in fresh cabbage, it releases the moisture, and that process causes fermentation, right? It's called lactic acid fermentation. But what I also wanted to do before using it myself, and I encourage others to do so, is when they're removing the leaves from the head to clear them with from the excess salt with water. So I did it beforehand, and now the thing that I need to do is just thin this thick part of the leaf.
Ivana, so you saying that you are able to buy full head of fermented cabbage in the store?
Yes.
Okay.
Like during the winter time, it's super available everywhere.
We don't have it anything like that. I wish we can have something like that. That would be exciting.
Like people here in this part of the Europe, it's normal thing to do during winter, because you want to preserve as much vegetables as you want during the winter time. So of course, since the winter time is for 4 months, people would usually ferment their produce. So if I, for example, usually on Saturdays and Sundays, there's a huge, humongous fresh farmers market, like 10 minutes from my apartment. And I spend like hours just circling around and see what kind of produce are people made during the winter time. So one of the dishes that is very well known throughout this part of the Europe, I'm sure you know it. It's called the ivana, right? It's a spread of baked paprika and eggplants.
Yes.
And each of the family has its own. So my intention actually for one of the next shows, if there's gonna be a chance, is to do it in raw version, because it's so umami and so flavorful and amazing that it's simply, I'm very sad that nobody's doing it like from scratch and in raw version. So another thing is cabbage. Somebody is pickling it with just salt. So it's super simple. You rub the salt in the cabbage leaves. That makes it easier on digestion. They say it increases vitamin C's and K, but that's the knowledge of the farmers. And then some people are pickling it with apple, with berries. Depends on the preference of the family who is doing it. Sometimes I'm able to find one because they're pickling it with beets. So it's super like funky food on the plate where you see pink food, just because it was pickled with beet juice. So it's super fun.
So
Exactly.
for us to
Have you
replicate.
found?
Go ahead, Dr. Graham. Huh? Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Have you found a difference if you are soaking the cabbage in warm water or cold water? Does it make any difference?
To be honest, I just found you mean when I bought the pickled one? I
Yeah.
removed it, I removed it in cold water because it was so soft already. I think it was fermented for a longer time. It was so soft when I started doing it with hot water, it became too like almost too mushy. And I want to keep the crispiness of the cabbage, or the crispiness generally of the cut or pre-made veggies. That's why you're soaking something in cold water. So, for example, when you're shredding your carrots and you need to shred your carrots way before serving a salad, or you're waiting for the guests, it's always cool to put the cabbage in the bowl of cold water just to keep it crispy until the guests arrive. So it's usually what you do with all the pre-cut veggies. That's why I did also in cold water.
Oh, and if I can, I love this interlude, and you're so calm about all this. It's great. How meticulous are you about getting the salt off of the food before you continue the processes?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. How am I? Can you repeat?
How meticulous are you about getting the salt off of the food, or rinsing it, or soaking it again, or how concerned, how anal, how
Oh,
how
well, I
how
have.
much, to what lengths do you know to what lengths do you go to get the salt back off?
Um, um, I usually don't consume salt, so I feel salt in traces. But in this dish, I'm expecting already that it's been fermented in salted brine, and that I'm not able to remove 99.9% of the salt. But I washed them really thoroughly. So I tasted them just before starting to see what I did, and it's almost zero salt. I couldn't feel the salt. I just felt the fermented flavor,
Perfect.
which is gonna
That's
blend really nice with the filling. So it's very you can do it. Like also when you're soaking the dried tomatoes, people usually dry them with a little bit of salt. But it's if you soak them long enough before you're gonna use them, you can rinse them like fairly enough without the salt leftovers on it. So it's not hard.
So Ivana, for us to get that feel of the cabbage, softened feel, the only thing, because we don't have fermented options, we basically freeze them, pull the leaves off the cabbage, and then freeze them, and then thaw them before we stuff them.
Okay. So to go back to the leaves, then don't forget, for example, especially if you're using the fresh one, just remove that stem, the thicker part here. As I said, you're holding the knife like this as you would fillet something. So let's do it together with one of the leaves. Okay, I don't know if you see me, but you would. Okay, so you're filleting this thick part and putting it aside. Okay. Okay, guys, do you have 6 leaves? And you have the filling ready, so you're able to see me. Just the first roll, so I can show you how you put it inside of the leaf. Okay, grab yourself a spoon and your stuffing in front of you. And what you want to do, it's super easy. Don't feel like you cannot make mistake here for sure. You put like 2 tablespoons of the stuffing in the center. If you want to put more, you can, but it's going to be harder to roll. So feel free to put, like, let's say on the first one, experiment whether you like it less stuffed or more stuffed. I usually put about 2 tablespoons, like, okay, like this, maybe like this, okay? And then you can do it from the air if you feel more like, if you're experienced in rolling the cabbage, which I'm sure you are, or you can put it just here on the kitchen table, on the table and on your desk. And what you want to do with your right finger, you want to put the stuffing like this, like you're folding, wait a second, like you're folding a tortilla or burrito, okay? And then this part of the cabbage, the outer part, you tuck in, and then you roll them until the end, and you get like a nice, which I still have a little bit of water, okay? You get like this nice fold of cabbage. Let's put it on the plate. Okay, I'm gonna put it here. Okay, and continue with the other leaves. Did you guys get the chance to roll it before? Feel free to talk and ask questions. I'm here to answer all your questions. That's why I'm here, actually. So just feel free to join me. Okay. If your leaves are smaller, I think 1.5 tablespoons is going to be enough. For me, it is, because the leaves are a little bit on the smaller size. And I want my filling to be inside rather than go everywhere. The filling, you're going to have enough, don't worry. Maybe even the leftovers, which is always nice as a stuffing for any other dish you might prefer. Okay. And then roll it like this. Okay, so first the middle part inside, then the outer parts, and then you roll it until the end. Okay.
Ivana, I cannot believe it's so easy, and they turn out so easy and so good. That's exciting.
Can you imagine? And you were saying me you enjoyed this dish before, when you were living in Russia, right?
And I didn't make it for almost 6 years since I turned vegan.
Wow. Well, I hope my grandma is not rolling in her grave. May her rest in peace, because this is something we tweaked a little bit her recipe, but for the good of everybody, for the better. Okay. Like, this is also for me, it's super as a snack throughout the week, you know, throughout the busy week. You can grab this piece of, like, sarma dolma, however you want to call it, and just put it in a purse, right? Like in a Tupperware or something. It's like small fresh burrito. Okay. And the stuffing, if you tasted the stuffing, it goes on the meaty taste, I would say, right? Okay. Clean your kitchen table if it's messy, so you have less work later. I will have stuffing leftovers, which I'm glad. More cabbage rolls to roll afterwards. Let me know how is it going, because now we are actually ready to go for our puree. ingredients for the puree and for pureeing are that we are going to be serving with. So the sarma, the rolls in Croatia are usually served with mashed potatoes or whole potatoes. Since we are not eating raw potatoes, I'm sure, I hope, I decided to do a puree out of something that is super seasonal right now here, which is squashes and apples. It's easy on the digestion. It doesn't have such an amount of starch, and it will pair very well with I would say some briny, salty flavor that I have with my sauerkraut, or you with your cabbage, which is pretty bland in flavor until you flavor it itself. So I opt for something sweet to blend in all our tastes. Okay, so I have squash. I'm gonna read up the ingredients first. You would choose one cup of a squash. I went for the one we call Turk squash because it's, I would say, the sweetest one for me, and it's very pink. The meat, the shell outside is it's usually dark green like this. I don't know if you have it, but you can go for butternut squash or any other variety that you prefer. Then apples. Since I have two small, I will put both of them. If you have one bigger, feel free to start with half and then continue with the whole one. I will go for the smaller ones. They're hand-picked, very organic. They even have the, I think, worm traces here, so they're super organic. Then a little piece of ginger, garlic, cinnamon, and ingredient that I just added before putting my ingredients together. Feel free to you don't have to put it if you don't like, but I have a fresh turmeric, so I'm gonna just put a small amount of turmeric. It will pair very well with ginger and pumpkin and apple, and water to go for our blender to function properly. Mine is not so good one. I hope you have Vitamixes or something. This one is on the lower side of the quality, so I'm gonna be have to put a little bit amount of water to blend to start with. So first, grab your squashes because we want to remove this part, the outer part. Feel free to cut it on the smaller chunk so it's easier for you to peel the core. Okay. Okay. The squash is usually super hard to cut, so be gentle, be careful, no rush. Okay. Okay, I have some parts that I also need to remove. Are squashes in the season in US, or I don't know the participants' country? If they're in season, great. The flavor will be very, very nice. So, okay, about 1 cup. Okay. Then take your apples. You don't have to remove the skin. You want to keep all the vitamins going. If you want to be like a little bit fussy and you want your puree to be super smooth, remove it. But I don't, especially when I was able to pick them by myself from the tree. I really didn't want to remove the core for the puree. Feel free to do so. If it's store-bought, I encourage you to take it easy or on yourself. So I'm going to be putting 2 apples. The leftover, please feel free to save for the compost. I'm having it underneath, so I'm just like piling up and then putting it in the garden bag. And about the ginger, if you don't know the technique, I will show you now, but I'm sure you know it, how to peel the ginger the easiest. You grab a spoon, put it on the table, and you just clean it with the front of the spoon. You're removing the skin. That way, you will save as much amount of meat as possible. So because you're just removing the skin. All the juices are inside. You're not cutting like the whole ginger that has super nice skin to be removed just like this with the back of the spoon. Okay. And then with the grater, I will just grate it directly inside. Since it's cold here, I like to put a little bit more ginger and get that fire from the food. Okay. Small piece of turmeric if you have the fresh one. If you don't have the fresh one, you can use the powder form. Feel free to adjust based on your preferences. If you don't like the strong taste of turmeric, you can completely, you don't have to put it inside. I got in love, I fell in love when I was living in Thailand and then going to Bali, of course. And they have this beautiful, beautiful drink. It's called yamu, with loads of fresh turmeric and ginger and cinnamon, which they are selling on the streets. So I fell in love with fresh turmeric. Maybe Dr. Gregor will tell me if it's good or not. And 1 clove of garlic. Again, you can remove the middle part, the pungent part of the garlic, or you can leave it in. Cinnamon, up to ½ teaspoon. This is something I'm usually using for half of the, when I don't have my measuring spoons close to me, the back of the spoon, it's also very handy. And a little bit of filtered water. For me, it's going to be a little bit more. For you, you can easily adjust afterwards. Okay, let's see. Okay. Always don't forget to taste what you've made. So you can easily adjust the flavor. I like it. If you want to, for example, my pumpkin wasn't sweet. I can already feel it in my mouth. So if you want to enhance the sweet flavor of this puree, if not, leave it like this. You can always put one date if you feel it's not sweet enough, which I'm gonna do because I like them to be a little bit on the sweet side. In Croatia, we don't have the medjool dates, for example, but we do have the ones coming from Iran. So they're also raw and they're super meaty as well. Meaty, and I would say still like a lot of water content in them. I will put one. So now you can see how the recipe is very live, and it's very important, especially if you're having somebody over, to always try the food you're doing and adjust based on your preferences. Recipe is one thing. You never know what you're gonna get after you blend all ingredients together. Okay, and a little bit of lemon juice, which I forgot. Since we are not using salt, for example, we are not enhancing, like salt is usually just used as a flavor enhancer. But since we're not using it, it's always good to put a little bit of lime or lemon. So with acidity, we are bringing the flavors up. Okay. It's gonna be perfect now. Much better. Okay. Remove all the ingredients you don't need. And now I'm going to show you just one thing, one way how you can serve it yourself. If you're not super hungry and you have some spare time for waiting, what you could do, you can put the cabbages like I did in a bowl like this. So it's like a ceramic bowl. You can put the puree on top of them and put them in the dehydrator a little bit so they warm up. If it's winter time and it's snow and you want something warm and cozy, you can do that. Otherwise, you just serve it on a plate. So I will serve one dish on a plate and the other parts I'm going to put in the dehydrator. It's 7 o'clock here p.m. So my dinner time is already up and I'm going to be enjoying them later. Let's plate our dish. Okay, I'm going to be putting a little bit of puree like this here. Okay. And then with my hands, grab, let's say, one roll, and then I'm going to cut through the other one. I'm choosing one nicer. Okay. So you see how beautifully they look? I'm going to put them like this. A little bit of parsley, which is in my fridge. One tip, when you're saving fresh ingredients in the fridge, always keep them in the cloth that you soaked in the water. That way they can stay for like a week, 10 days at least in the fridge. So what you want to do, grab maybe some leaves for garnish. We can put it like this. I mean, serve yourself a dish as you would serve it to the person you like the most, which is, I hope, yourself. So there you go, one version of our dish.